Over the last few years, I've been fortunate enough to build up a double-digit property portfolio. During this period, I've had to develop my own knowledge and navigate through a whole host of challenges and mistakes. But the reality is, if I can do it, then so can you. This Property Market Investor Real Investor Success Series has been created so that everyday Australian investors can share their investing stories to the benefit of those looking to grow their own investing knowledge. Today, I'll be meeting with Lionel D'Cruze, who has been investing all across Australia for the last 15 plus years, and during this time has built up a double-digit property portfolio. Lionel's story is an interesting one, as he invests exclusively in brand new off-the-plan properties. Let's join Lionel and find out more about his inspirational investing story. Hey Lionel, how's it going?
Going good, man. Nice to see you.
Yeah, very good to see you too. So let's go right back to the beginning of your property journey. What was it that got you started?
Funny you should say that, actually, because for me, when I started, it wasn't anything as a property journey in mind.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that traditional people do, buy their first home, and that's what I did. I bought my first place to live in.
Yeah.
And that was going back in '91.
Yeah, wow.
Not knowing Sydney, because I just migrated and come from Melbourne. I'd been in
Yeah.
Melbourne for 3 years prior to that. So the only thing that I could afford at the time was a 2-bedroom villa out in the western suburbs, which I did buy.
Yeah.
And that was my first property where I started.
Yeah, wow. And how much did you pay for that?
84,000.
84,000, yeah.
Today the market value of that is around about 460,000. Having said that, there's not been much from an economical point of view for that area growth-wise.
Yeah, indeed.
It's just that, it's the same quality of people and what have you, but property is one of those things that just keep growing.
Yeah, regardless of gentrification.
It doesn't.
Yeah. And so have you kept hold of that property? Do you still have that today?
No, I don't. And that's the sad part of it. And that's one of the things that I do with my clients every day of the week, and try and tell them that it's very common for us to make mistakes.
Yeah.
When I started out this journey at that time, I had nobody to help me or guide me and say, Lionel, there's something known as a landlord insurance, for example. And that was a nightmare in itself, because that particular property, I did keep it as my first investment, because 2 years later, it was in '94 when I bought my first home in Minchinbury.
Okay.
And both my daughters were born in that house in Minchinbury. But it was at the time when the property market was like where it is today, going off the boil sort of thing. And there wasn't much any growth opportunity in that. So I rented out the other 2-bedroom villa that I had.
Yeah.
But the tenants that I attracted were people who didn't care much about another man's property.
Too right. Did you use a rental agency or did you manage it yourself?
No, I did not know nothing. I was an area manager for Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah.
So it was a total different feel for me. I knew nothing about property.
Yeah.
It was just by pure accident I stumbled over this.
Well, why did you think to keep hold of the property then? Because that's a mindset shift in itself, right? That's the first time that you're an investor.
As I said, I did not buy it with an investment in mind.
Yeah.
I was looking at buying another house actually at that time, and the bank was not prepared to lend me because of the borrowing capacity if I had kept that property. They wanted me to sell that so I could get another house in a place called Abbotsford.
Yeah.
And I chose not to sell it, and I said, no, I'd rather cut my losses and buy a smaller home and keep it as an investment.
Okay.
Since I already bought it, it was not even 8 months or 9 months that I had it. I couldn't live in that area. I wanted to move out.
As in because of the demographic?
Because of demographics, the condition of the roads. It was like a beautiful villa complex, but in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, indeed.
And the roads were dirt, and the shock absorbers of my car got buggered in the first 6 months, sort of thing.
So it's an expensive place to live.
It was. Now it is a total different area for us. Hindsight is terrific, as they say. But I felt it was becoming more a burden more than anything else.
Yeah.
And for the next 7 years after that, I did nothing. I never got into another property, and I just concentrated on my family.
Yeah.
Because, you get your priorities at different stages of your life, different things take importance.
Yeah, indeed.
And for me, it was mainly family. And I didn't want to commit to another mortgage or I wish I was your age at that time and being bullish and doing the things the young ones do today.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see past that, because I come from a background from overseas. I'd migrated here with $500 in my wallet and a suitcase full of dreams.
Yeah.
And I had to make it from that. So there was no mom and dad or any inheritance or someone giving me a hand or advice of how to go about things. So I stumbled and felt my way around.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And,
Good on, yeah.
And that's how it landed. It all began from there. I sold that property, and of course it was
Which
a while.
one? Sorry, is that Mount
The
Druitt
first,
or
the Mount Druitt
The
one.
Mount Druitt one.
I sold
much,
that
How
one.
much did you get for that?
Sold it for about 160,000. Made money.
So you doubled.
Oh yeah, it made money.
And over what period was that? How many years?
Probably in about 10 years.
Yeah. Okay, great.
But for 10 years it was continuous drama.
Yeah.
You know, but I just didn't feel the time to sell it. I said, I can't be bothered going around this. It was a rigmarole. And it so happened it was Providence in 97 when Encyclopedia Britannica went on to a CD.
Yeah.
And I was doing, like today, I just driving here, I heard they're having a massive boat show at Darling Harbour.
Yeah.
There was a time I used to work every show, and the boat show was one of those.
Yeah.
And people would walk by and tell me, what are you doing at Encyclopedias at a boat show? And I would be funny with them and say, mate, they're waterproof. So, you know, I had nothing in mind about knowledge about property.
Yeah.
As such. But there was a caption, the last day of the show we were doing, I was with two friends, they were both Pommies. One was John Morris, another was John Murray, and they were good buddies. And the night had finished for us, and we were having a VB, and they came around the Telegraph.
Yeah.
And journalists came taking out pictures, and the caption next day was the death of a salesman. So and the three of us, I know, it's like three stooges with the can of beer. And
Yeah, indeed.
And there was a property company up in Linfield who had seen this article, and they rang up Encyclopedia Britannica, and I was very liked much by the president and the vice president of Britannica at the time. And the guy said, you know, I've read this thing in your sales force, you're dismantling. Could you recommend somebody?
Yeah.
And I was straight away off top of the rank. The president said, there's two people that I can recommend. One was a boy named called John Taylor, and the other is Lionel D'Cruze.
And just to clarify, were you doing door-to-door sales?
No. I was an area manager. I wasn't ever doing door-to-door sales.
Yeah.
We had a different form of marketing. We used to target the schools.
Yeah.
So we had Reader's Digest leads and school cardings, and we used to do a lot of shopping centers.
Yeah, okay.
So I used to work 7 days a week. You know, it was the last 8 years of my life I'd done that only. So I knew nothing about property. It was just I happened to buy the first two properties because I needed somewhere to live.
Yeah, for sure.
But when I started in the property business in 97, that's when it became an eye-opener, and I started educating myself a lot more than the things I'd not known. I started learning.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I can educate and sell this to people, why can't I do it for myself?
Not too right. And by this point, had you already sold the original property?
No, it still had it.
You still
had it. That had not been sold yet, because now this was only about 8 years.
Yeah.
97 is when I bought the property around 91, so this is 97.
Yeah, okay.
So it would have been probably in the early 2000 when I sold that property.
Why was it that you sold?
Because I wanted to go to better areas.
Okay.
I wanted to use the money to, you know, to move forward and do, because I was doing a lot of house and land in Queensland.
Yeah.
And the first 8 years in this industry that I joined up was dealing only in Queensland.
Yeah.
Now when I look back and I tell my friends I was doing house and land packages for 180, 190,000.
What areas in Queensland was that?
Crestmead, Marsden Park.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Forest Lakes.
Yeah, okay.
Sunnybanks, Callumville.
So you're talking maybe like 20 k's from Brisbane?
No, they were less than 20. Those were less than 20. They were around about 14, 15 clicks.
Yeah.
I still have a property over there myself. I loved it so much, I also bought myself. And that's one of my house and lands that I have. As I said, I never did off the plan.
Yeah.
First 9 years of being in this industry, I only dealt in house and land.
Yeah.
So I've been a traditionalist, like, you know, if you don't have a piece of land, you don't have an investment.
Yeah.
And secondly, it was a quick turnaround because the buildings only took about 6 months. So you could move on to next project. So when you buy off a plan, it's something like 2 years, 3 years, can be 5 years at times. So it was a mindset more than anything else. So when I started back in 2007 with Ironfish, to me it was a different kind of just now what am I doing over here?
So when you did join Ironfish, what was the portfolio size at that point?
By that stage, I already had 6 properties.
6.
Yeah.
So what was the difference then? Had you bought maybe 3 house and land packages?
No, I bought them in Brisbane, and I bought in Ashfield because I now decided to buy closer to the city.
Yeah, okay.
And that is what did me very well.
And what was the property in Ashfield?
It was a 2-bedroom unit.
2-bedroom unit.
Back then, the 2-bedroom unit was 170,000.
Yeah. Wow. And was that an existing dwelling, or was it?
It was, and I said I never did off the plan. I didn't want to buy something new and not know what to. I was the old way of thinking. You know, you got to touch and feel and see. And I come across a lot of people like that even today.
Yeah.
You know, they still feel like unless they cannot see it, they don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, indeed. So at what point did you feel as though you were a property investor? Was it when you got to 3, 4 or 5?
When I got to my 4th property, then I realized there was money to be made in this.
Yeah, okay.
Because then I started realizing from a tax point of view, it was being very helpful.
Yeah.
And secondly, the properties were appreciating and I could see the growth on them.
Yeah.
So now I could reuse those equities and revisit them periodically, draw some equity and buy.
Yeah.
And that's how I started building that portfolio.
And were you comfortable leveraging LMI to build that portfolio?
I tried my best to avoid that LMI scenario because I always considered that being dead money, even though that was a tax deduction.
Yeah.
But I used to feel if I'm not comfortable within the loan structure, because LMI is good, you're virtually out on a ledge.
Yeah.
You know, if something did go wrong, remember, keep in mind, back in 90 when I started, Australia was in recession.
Yeah.
And my first property I purchased, I was paying 17% interest.
Interest rate, yeah, okay.
And now when you have 2 girls, you know, young kids in the family, and you don't want to be hanging out on a limb.
Yeah.
You know, so I wasn't so risk averse of it when it came to these sort of things, because I kept the family as, you know, the front thing, focus in mind, and then think, all right, I can do it, but I can do it in a slower space.
Yeah.
And that's always been my mindset, even till date. Like, I've never been that bullish, going out there and trying to set the world on fire.
Yeah.
I did it in my way where I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Even though I work in a company where people have got, you know, first year 7 properties in 1 year.
People are purchasing that?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Probably not in the last 3 years,
well,
right?
you know, my CEO, for example, he purchased his first investment strategy was to buy 7 in the 1 year.
Yeah.
And I always jokingly tell him, I said, I'm 1 year longer in this industry, but he has nearly 15 to 20 times more than what I have.
Yeah, jeez. And at what point in the journey, well, I don't even know if you have transitioned, have you transitioned now to using rental managers?
Well, I do have property managers now that they all do the property management for me. And just on my way, I got 3 statements just sent for the year because it's 1st of August. So for last month's statements have all been sent automatically, so I get them straight away. So now I've got them all managed by the property estate managers, and they take care of all the utilities because I don't have the time.
Right, especially not if you've got a large portfolio, right? That's when you need to start to set up processes and outsource the work.
You have to, because you can't do it all.
Yeah.
You know, at times I always felt, you know, I'm capable of doing it. If I'm capable to show people, why can't I do it myself?
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a lesson I learned, because that was, now we are 7 years in this new house. So it was probably about 7 years back. I was under the presumption that my particular property I have in Southport, the property manager was looking after all the utilities and what have you for me. And when I moved, you know, you have the change of address.
Yeah.
So I did put a change of address in place for 6 months. And moved on to my new place, and all my mail was being redirected. However, the people who lived in that house was taking all my mail and putting in the junk.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Because apparently the mail started coming 6 months after that expiry, and I never knew about it.
Yeah.
And it's totally slipped my mind. I was completely oblivious. I was doing a property launch in Brisbane, and my wife had the day off that day, and she called me and she said, I just got a call from the Brisbane Waters, and they've said that we have an outstanding bill of $3,500. And I said, what are you talking about? Because I'm one of those sticklers that I have to make sure I'm on top of my bills.
Yeah.
And I said, this is impossible. I said, just leave it. I said, when I come back home, I'll have a look.
Yeah.
So I came back home and she said, this is the guy's number, give him a call and have a chat. So I called him, he said, Mr. D'Cruze, it hasn't been paid for 2 years. I said, what are you talking about? It's 2 years and it's been accumulating with interest.
So was this just one bill, or has it been the ongoing monthly usage that's increased?
And the people had moved on, and they had not even claimed the water usage and nothing.
And the cause of this issue was because the rental manager was never told maybe to start paying it?
I was under the presumption he was.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I took it for granted. It was my mistake.
Yeah.
Anyways, I paid that. See how naive you can be at times, even though I'm in this industry, right?
Yeah.
Now, don't laugh. After I paid that, it was maybe a month later. I'm at work and I get an email from National Australia Bank telling me that they're going to put a foreclosure on my property. And I'm
same property?
Same property. And I'm thinking, what are these guys on about now?
Yeah.
So I immediately get on the phone and I tell them, hey, why am I getting this email? He says, sir, you are in areas for nearly 16,000. I said, what are you talking about? Your council, your body corporate. It has not been paid for 2 years. And now they've employed and taken on a high swinging solicitor, and they had supposed to have summoned me. In 21 days, I had to appear in Southport Court. And those people had accepted the summons on my behalf as well. So I was totally oblivious about having me to even go to court.
Did you have to, if you could just settle the amount there and then could you
I did.
dismiss the
I
court
did.
appearance? Yeah.
But that affected me, because by this stage, they already put me on a bad CRA.
So that affects your credit rating moving forward.
And I had a settlement for Flatiron in Fortitude Valley that October.
Okay, and you'd had maybe pre-approval on that, but you needed to go through the actual
Exactly, but by this stage, it's all going to be falling apart.
Yeah.
So I had to get the solicitors involved, and it was an expensive affair.
I can imagine. Just those two bills by itself without the solicitor's fees.
They were kind enough to waive the interest that was occurred on the council rate.
Yeah.
Not council rates, I mean on the body corporate.
Yeah.
That was close to around about $6,000 or $7,000.
Just the interest alone?
Just the interest.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, okay.
So it was a bitter lesson.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
now I am always on top of it. If I get something, I immediately get on the blow. I say, hey, what are you doing?
How do you manage that then? Do you have, say, an Excel spreadsheet
I do.
template that you use, and then do you complete, I don't know, like a process each month at the end of the month, so you make sure that the rental payments are actually made into your bank account from the rental agency, and you account for the ongoing expenses?
Yeah.
So kind of like an ongoing P&L?
That's it. Because it all comes to one account. You know, I remember me explaining how that all sort of line of credit works.
Yeah,
so I have all the funds going in through one account, so I can
one
just
line of credit,
Yep.
all the income goes there, and then
from that, the
the
periodic
direct
payment goes
debit
out.
goes to each of the...
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So I am on top of those things.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. So end of the year, when I'm like right now, when I do my taxes,
Yeah.
I've got a spreadsheet, Excel for each and every property.
Yeah.
So now I can put them all together and bang and put in front of the accountant.
Yeah.
And it's an easy walk.
Yeah,
but
indeed.
keeping track of those things sometimes can be difficult.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So you're doing that on a monthly basis, and you
Yeah.
kind of set aside a little bit of our time.
So there's always, and you need to keep a little buffer at the same time.
Cash
Cash,
buffer?
you need to.
What's your rule of thumb? How much cash buffer do you keep?
I normally keep around about $150,000 to $200,000.
Yeah, and is
just
that
in
amount
case.
because that's maybe a month's worth of expenses for all of your properties?
And just in case, you know, something goes sideways.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
you've always got something to fall back on.
Yeah,
Because also while I was doing this, I also set up a self-managed super fund.
yeah.
And I purchased properties through my self-managed super fund.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's touch on that then. So the self-managed super fund is this, maybe after you've got your foundation portfolio of properties and you built up an asset base within your super that was enough to set up the self-managed super fund.
Yeah.
Was there a certain property type that you were looking to acquire? What was the objective with the self-managed super fund?
The main objective with that was, you know, I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah.
And seeing what happened back in 2008 with the global financial crisis,
Yeah.
a lot of people I knew had lost around about 25-30% of their super.
Yeah.
A lot of my close friends who were at that time planning on retiring they had to just
You had to work a few more years.
put it back on the back burner. And I feel that if ever something like that did happen again, I don't have the luxury of time of putting any money back into that.
Yeah.
So what me and my wife have already accumulated,
Yeah.
I thought I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah, indeed.
And the safest place that I know of is bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
You know, so I've come across many people. Like I came across a lady friend from Melbourne, and she was talking to me about cryptocurrency, and it sounded so fanciful, and I could make all this money. And if I got in when it was only 13 cents, and today it's
Was she
sitting at
actually
about-
selling it to you, or was she just talking about
No, she was selling it. No, she
Yeah.
was. But being me, I just took a little longer to digest this thing
Yeah.
because, you know, as I said, I'm one of these from the old school.
it? Yeah.
I've never been a gambler. So I just took my own time thinking and humming and hurrying, should I? And I was talking to some friends to see what feedback I'd get. And I did get 2 or 3 people tell me, if you're going into it, we'll go in it. We'll put 20 grand each into it.
Yeah.
And now I was going to be responsible for these people if something stuffed up. And so that gave me more food for thought.
Yeah.
And while I was doing this contemplation, it could have been probably about 2 months. And each time I asked this girl, she kept telling me, it's just gone now to 70 cents. Now it's gone to 95 cents. It kept increasing. So it went right up to $100 and $1.20 or $1.25.
This is prior to you committing to any investment. Yeah.
And then suddenly I find out, what happened? Oh, it's all gone pear-shaped. we've got our money back and we're not doing this. I said, oh, thank God I never got into it.
So what, that's when it crashed?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they were setting up accounts in Dubai.
Is this December 2017 or maybe early 2018?
That was around about that time.
Yeah, indeed.
So I decided with my wife, I said, no, we're going to be playing it safe. We're going to put our money. Of course, you've got to keep a little bit of
So
cash.
you're considering your money from your self-managed super to put into cryptocurrency?
Yeah, because there's money you can play with.
Yeah, indeed.
But I was being irresponsible if I did that because my wife's money is equally in play in that,
Oh,
so
for sure.
I didn't think it was something would be worthwhile doing, so I didn't. And I think I made the right choice by putting it into the property because that area I bought in Docklands. And Docklands is just in boom. You know, it's one of those areas you would not be able to afford to buy there next 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And every time I go back to Melbourne, I just love that place.
Yeah.
So,
And
it's a beautiful.
let's talk about that asset then. So what was it that you purchased in Docklands?
I bought a 2-bedroom unit over there. It was a building called the Promenade. It's a silver tower.
Okay.
So it's just facing the water. And I didn't actually get into that building initially because that building was only for our China office.
Yeah.
So we had the bronze building, which was called Acqui, and I had about 16 clients who purchased over there, and they all loved it. And they went back to see the settlement time. They loved it. They could not talk highly enough about the property.
Yeah.
It so happened this China crisis came about, where they were not allowing them to bring funds out.
Yeah, indeed.
So one of the clients who had purchased in that property project could not settle. So for them not to lose their money, it came up on to, for us as staff, we were given the first opportunity. So you're buying it at the same price these people paid 4 years ago.
Yeah, okay. And had growth been achieved during that time?
Already had made the growth, but they can't sell it for a profit.
Yeah, indeed.
And it's the same principle, even today the same rules apply.
Yeah.
If someone can't settle, we're not there to make them lose their money.
Yeah.
So we try and find somebody else who can buy it and resell it.
Yeah.
And back then it used to be an advantage because the Victorian government used to have the stamp duty discounts.
Yeah.
So that was another saving of across 21,000. So I said, why not, So I was able to convince the wife.
So how much did you spend on that?
510.
510 for a 2-bedder in Docklands. Yeah, wow, with a car space as well.
With a car space.
Yeah.
Try buying one now for 510 there.
Yeah, indeed. So what year was it again that you joined Ironfish?
2007. So this is my 12th year.
And so by that point, did you say you had 6 properties in total? Okay, lovely stuff. So this is your new foray into off the plan.
Yep.
How long after working at Ironfish did you actually jump in yourself and start to invest with that same model?
5 months.
5 months, you weren't wasting any time.
I didn't waste no time. And I tell you what, sometimes you got to kick yourself when you do things.
Yeah.
Because as human, we all have this tendency of sometimes being a bit greedy.
Yeah.
And we did this project in Southport, I just mentioned to you that. And I fell in love with that area and that project in particular. It was something out of this world I've not seen in a while.
Yeah.
Like that type of architecture design, the floor plans and everything that they had going for it. And at that time there was a light rail, only in discussion, that was going to be happening and it's going to go all the way down to Griffith University and it's going to be passing Lawson Street and the building is right there, the stop is going to be there. I thought, wow, you can't ask for more than that. Infrastructure, money going crazy into this place.
Yeah.
So I bought into it and I asked actually my general manager at the time, I went and whispered and asked him, I said, listen, are we able to buy and do these things? He says, if you want to. I said, oh, all right. Can I have one? He says, yeah, which one do you like? So I went looking around the model. I said, okay, I'll have one on level 14.
Yeah.
He said, sure. I said, yeah, that was the unit number 4 on level 14. I took it off. He says, oh, you just do the paperwork and pay the 10% when you get back home. I said, yeah, sure. Before I knew it, there was about 10 or 15 staff from Melbourne office and Sydney office all jumped on. It was like, an auction house.
Yeah.
All taking...
And was it because of all these fundamentals that were at play at the same time?
Exactly. Yeah. But then again, as I say, hindsight is terrific. At that time, we didn't know any better. Now remember, this is 2007.
Yeah.
December. I've done this. I come back home and I've got the DVD, and they used to have a lot of paraphernalia and marketing material. Like these days, they don't make it as much, but they used to. And this was a very renowned developer, Mr. J. Raptis, the Raptis Group.
Yeah.
Jim Raptis, his name was. And had a very good relationship with our company too, because our company already had done stage 1 and 2 with him.
So
and this was
stage
stage 3.
Yeah.
So
okay.
they're called Tower 3, and they still stand out beautifully in the skyline when you go to Southport. You see it. It's just behind Australia Fair. You know, you can virtually walk across and you got Australia Fair.
Yeah.
And Australia Fair at the time was one of the largest in Southport.
Yeah.
Anyways, bought the property. I came back home and I put everything down there, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to freshen up. She said, have a look at what I went and saw today. And so she saw the DVD. And I come down, she tells me, oh, that's beautiful. We should be able to get one over there. I said, really? Because she had not known I'd done this. Because I didn't know how I'm going to sell it to her.
Yeah, indeed. Well,
and she said,
just the subtle art of selling it.
I said, well, you know, if you say so. I said, guess what? Your wish is coming my command. And she said, you're serious? I said, yeah, I just did one. And I told her what I did, and she was excited about it.
Yeah.
That weekend, we had a friend, very close family friend, coming over to have dinner. And she was so excited that she could not help herself and tell this friend of ours, have a look and see what Leo did. Puts the DVD on and shows it to her.
Yeah.
And this couple is sitting and they are just gobsmacked. And they're saying, wow, how do we get one? I said, that's easy. Talk to me.
What was the purchase price at the time?
I paid 410 for a one-bedder with a car park.
Yeah.
It's a 1+ study.
Yeah.
And a car park. 410 I paid.
Yeah.
So he tells me, he says, how do we go about that? I said, it's easy. I said, I can't get you the level 14 because it's gone.
Yeah.
I'll get you the one exactly like mine, one level below, level 13. And that will be probably $2.5 cheap because you know each level goes up.
It's slightly increased.
And they were happy and they bought it with me. Valentine's Day the following year, we had the property inspection to go and have a look at it. We had to put the hard hats, and also as a family, all of us went together. Went and saw the property. They loved it. We went and had some beautiful lunch and came back. Next thing you know, all hell broke loose. Global financial crisis. All the developers have gone belly up, and Gold Coast got hit the worst.
Yeah, indeed. Okay.
And this particular developer went up for receivership.
So what happens in that situation?
Well, what happens is the Commonwealth Bank stepped in. They give the balance 3 levels to be built by multiplex, so they finished it up. But now when you went to get a loan, it was 100,000 below market value.
Okay, wow. So you've got to chip in that extra 100 grand as cash.
It wasn't a good feel.
No,
you know,
definitely
for my
not.
first time in off the plan.
Nah.
And now I'm taking this money off the wife, and I'm telling her, I guess we do that or we lose our 10%.
And also your friends as well.
And my
invested.
friend. I lost a friend as well after that.
Yeah.
Because they did not feel, you know, they were done right, and they didn't have that mindset.
Yeah.
It was not something that I had control over, and they didn't even realize that I was in the same boat with them.
Yeah, indeed.
It was something that, you know, it was unavoidable, and it wasn't just only me, but the whole building. Everybody got affected.
Probably the whole Gold Coast, right?
Yeah, and that entire area took a very long time to pick up. It's only been now in the last 3 years that the Gold Coast is actually now a bit, you know, on the upswing.
Yeah.
So we did not go into that market for a while. I still love that project.
Yeah.
You know, it's still one of my pet projects that I would say if I ever retired, that would be a place I'd want to go and live in.
Yeah, indeed.
Because it'll be just perfect.
Is that part of the risk then, that maybe you put emotion into the purchase, that you were attracted to it, you saw yourself living in there, rather than looking at the tenants?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's a mistake a lot of people make, and I always tell them, it needs to be clinical. Get the emotion out of it.
Yeah, indeed.
If you start thinking of how you're going to see it when you want to live in days to come from now, you're making the decision back to front.
Yeah, for sure.
And things can go sideways, and then you're going to kick yourself.
So how did you recover from that?
It took me a little while.
Yeah.
But, you know, by this stage, my mindset was no longer frightened. I knew this is the nature of the business.
That's it, yeah.
So immediately I bought the next property. The year I settled on that, I bought in Hamilton Harbour.
Yeah.
Because that was the first urban renewal, largest in Queensland history.
So was it because you've really shown balls of steel there to come from this and run straight at it again?
Yeah.
Is that because you felt as though you've been through the worst of it? What more else could happen? As long as you've got the cash flow to manage yourself moving forward. Did you look at property moving forward in a different way? You know, we've just discussed the emotional element. Did your criteria for selection maybe change?
From then moving forward, I never ever looked at it as an investment for me to ever live in.
Yeah, okay.
I always looked at it from a numbers point of view. And I felt like this particular one, Hamilton Harbour, I think I had 25 clients. And it came with a lot of conviction, because when the clients realized that I was on board with them, is that when they felt. But again, hindsight, you know, now I would never do something like that, because for a first-time investor, taking them into urban renewal areas is a hard yakka because it does take a long time to get any equity.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Because at this stage, we were the first building, and it was one of the largest developers called Leighton Properties. And Divine, which was one of the top 500, public listed companies of the time. And they were doing a joint venture of $500 million project of 3 buildings. So if they are investing $500 million, we are just small fries. And I thought they can have some foresight and they can see where they're going with this. And that's 2.5 to 3 kilometers river frontage, that was all owned by the Port Trust. And that was now taken over by the Queensland government as an urban renewal area.
What year was this project?
2009.
2009.
Because I settled in Southport 2009.
And what was the purchase price for this one?
That one was a 1-bed I bought for 355.
355, yeah. And
no
have
car
you still
park.
got that
I
now?
still got that.
Yeah, and what do you reckon it's valued at now?
Today the value would be around about 410, not
410?
much. It hasn't increased much.
Indeed.
And a lot of the clients who went on board with me felt they were misled.
Okay,
And I keep telling them, I said, there is no right way or wrong way. The secret to investing is the longer you hold on to it. Some will take, quicker to grow, some will take longer. But like, you'd mentioned to me earlier about Newcastle. I have a client, they're doctors who lived in Newcastle. And one gentleman told me he would rather buy something in Wall's End, an old property. And I told him why. I said, because you're not going to get all these depreciations. It's not so attractive. It's still far away from Sydney. What type of people you're going to attract is talent? Because I was thinking of my first investment. The type of people, the demographics I was referring to. Because not everybody were doctors and dentists in that area. They were the specific trade these people had there. And he said no, he felt very comfortable doing that. But the other friend went ahead and purchased. And when the market in Sydney turned, he looked at me and he scoffed and told me, he says, he had listened to you at about 2 over a year. Because he's made more money in Newcastle, even buying an old house, than buying a new property in Hamilton. But Hamilton is similar to Double Bay in Sydney. It's where all the old money is. So you can't go wrong with a location as such. Now they're digging and putting in, after that they put that place called Portside Wharf, where all your big cruise liners.
Where's this, in Brisbane?
Brisbane. That's Hamilton. And now they're putting the runway. $1.2 billion is spending on that runway there. And that is the trade course where you got all your employment. So if you're just a bit more patient, I would say another 3 years time frame, that Brisbane market is going to turn. And I'm betting on that because I tell them, I said 7 of my investments is in Brisbane.
Well, I mean, it's been well documented, the oversupply that was in place in the Brisbane market, and supposedly that's been absorbed now. And as a result, the apartment market is now bouncing. It's starting to recover. And then maybe it's undersupplied. I know that I've read a few reports recently just looking at the Redland Bay area, and I know that it's the case in a few other council areas of Brisbane that just the undersupply is going to be a challenge moving forward, especially with the interstate migration.
Exactly. And Queensland and Brisbane in particular has one of the largest interstate migration figures in comparison to Victoria and New South Wales. For a very simple, they call that the Mexican wave, for a very simple reason of the affordability. Now, having said that, tomorrow morning, my flight's at 7 o'clock and I'm off to Brisbane. We're just doing a new project launch. So now we are dealing mainly with townhouse projects and with real boutique type of projects, I would say.
What do you class as boutique?
Where they don't have more than about 60 to 70 townhouses. They're small,
what's the benefit of that?
They're low maintenance. You're mainly a market is like an owner-occupier appeal. It's not so much for an investor market. So we have an office in Brisbane, as you're aware. So most of our Brisbane staff sell to the local first-home buyers. So it's got that appeal. It's got that little parcel of land, little backyard, something to start off.
Do you feel as though that owner-occupier appeal may facilitate greater level of capital growth?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because the market cannot stop when you're getting all these grants and you're getting the stamp duty exempts. The market is just going to boom. And that's going to take that property market for a ride on the upswing. And that's what's going to happen.
And so you said that you got 7 apartments in Brisbane?
No, not apartments. I got 7 properties.
Oh, 7 properties. Okay.
I've got a house and land in Brisbane as well, as I mentioned to you in Algester.
Yeah.
So I've got a mixture. I've got some townhouses,
Indeed.
I've got some apartments, and I've got some apartments in Melbourne.
Yeah.
I've got some in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I've got a few in Adelaide.
So since your time at Ironfish, you said 12 years that you've been there?
This is my 12th year.
How many apartments have you purchased, or sorry, properties?
From Ironfish, from my stock that I talk every day to my clients to, I've purchased 7 of them myself.
7. And how have you been able to finance the deposits of those? Have you been
just working harder?
Oh, so it's actually cash that
you've got to have your 2-hand policy. As my CEO says, you earn with the right, you spend with your left.
Okay.
You can't rely and depend on this equity that you're going to be doing, unless you're doing the things like a lot of people I know, they buy the old places, fix up and sell up and make, 50 grand, 60 grand.
Have you ever been tempted with that strategy?
I have never been tempted because I don't have much knowledge of it.
Okay.
Firstly. Secondly, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And dealing with tradespeople is a nightmare in itself.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right contacts with the right people, it can go completely out of budget. So where do you start?
Yeah.
You could be sitting at a lemon. And sometimes everything that looks rosy isn't all that. If it was that good, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
I have a very simple philosophy in life. I tell people there's no right way or wrong way.
Yeah.
If that was your cup of tea and you feel comfortable doing it, I have a very good mechanic. I've been dealing with him for nearly 16, 17 years. And his son is a financial planner, Alex. They're Croatians. And call, no matter what I tell him, it doesn't get to me. He says, Leo, I buy the old house, I break it, I put 2 duplex. I might live in one, I sell one. I'm happy. So he did that and he got Alex to do the same.
Yeah.
Now Alex is Alex will be about 28, 29.
Yeah.
He got married recently, he's got 2 kids. He's happy as Larry. He's given up the mechanic business. He used to work with his dad. Dad is still doing the mechanic work. But, now they've got these 2 duplexes. It's unencumbered.
Yeah.
He's happy. He doesn't need to put any more. So if I try to sell him that portfolio approach, it's a bit too far for them. They don't think that way.
Yeah.
They will think in their time they will buy another old block, they'll break it down and they'll put something up and they'll be happy.
Yeah.
And I can't tell them you're doing it wrong. That's their way. That's their choice.
What would you say if I'm looking at an off-the-plan purchase? What sort of areas do you think that is most suited for?
Right now, I would say there's 2 locations. One is a place in Melbourne, which is similar to what it used to be in Surrey Hills 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It is one of those growth corridors where they're putting in a brand new station coming through.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that the time back when we were doing King's Domain.
Yeah.
The tunnel that was going from the Domain going right through the hospital, it's going to end up in North Melbourne.
So North Melbourne, yeah.
And that's the area where we have, again, another boutique project, which is a very renowned developer. And that is one of the areas, if I was to recommend of a plan, because we do have another one in the city, but it's a very unique building. It's a 69-story building. And now with all these articles about these high-rise buildings, people are a bit on the fence.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
Yeah, indeed.
So that's one of the reasons why I recommend something like that. Or in Sydney, there's another location that we have at the moment.
Yeah.
And that is where all the money is being spent for a 1-in-100-year infrastructure that they're putting in place.
Yeah, okay.
It's the airport.
Yeah, indeed. And if, for example, I'm looking at a project for off the plan, my understanding, and you're way more of an expert than me, of course. So I've committed to maybe a building, and now I'm at the stage of saying, I'm looking at the floor plans. I want to decide, okay, which floor and what floor plan. Would I be right to anticipate that maybe the better opportunities would be, say, 2-bedders, ideally 2-bathroom, and a large open living space with a parking space as well that's available to somebody?
Well, if you put it that way, again, that is mainly an owner-occupier product.
Yeah, indeed.
From an investment point of view, when you buy something like that, we also got to look at the rental yields.
Yeah.
A 2-bedroom with a 2-bath and a garage, you're looking at, and we're talking about apartments in city locations.
Yeah.
The cheapest you can get will be anywhere around about $600,000 to $700,000.
Yeah.
The rental yield will not cover.
Okay, so you're saying from an investment perspective, because the yield is lower, it may not be suited to an investor?
That's right.
And is that based on an investor that has a large portfolio who needs to balance the cash flow?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. But would that, on the flip side, would that do better from a capital growth perspective?
It would. But
Yeah.
again, if you're not investing 700,000, and let's say you invested only 400,000,
Yeah.
and if it took 10 years or 12 years to double in value once, you
Yeah.
just made yourself 400,000.
Yeah.
But you can now spread your risk. Instead of putting that amount of money into one property, you could buy two. You know, like I had a lady the other day asked me about Broken Hill. You mentioned about Armadale.
Yeah.
She talked to me about Broken Hill, and I said the same. I said, listen, there is no right or wrong about it. The regional areas are good for everybody. They live there. But if you ask me my honest opinion, I personally would not want to invest over there because it takes a lot longer from a capital growth point of view. Because there's three main things that you look at when you're investing is, your population, your infrastructure, and your employment. And if these three things, one of them is missing, it's going to take a lot longer. Now, if somebody pulls a pin, for example, on the mining, Broken Hill was a gold mine many moons ago when they used to do tin mining.
Yeah.
And then it just become like a ghost town.
Yeah.
And now for some reason, someone starts thinking, oh, we need to go back and do some mining. And there's a boom. And everyone thinks, all right, we'll go there and we can buy for 350,000. We can't buy anywhere else. And the lady lives in Adelaide. And she's talking to me about Broken Hill. I said, all right. I said, I'll come to Adelaide and I'll show you something a lot decent in Adelaide.
Yeah.
In your own backyard that you're not aware of. The similar scenario I had when there was people buying from the coal seam gas, up in Gladstone.
Yeah, I do indeed. Yeah.
I used to have clients telling me, but Lionel, we can get over there and we're getting 3,000 rent.
On what sort of asset?
On a 4-bedroom house.
4-bedroom house.
3,000.
What sort of price point would that be?
The houses at them were being sold for 370, 400.
Jesus. Yeah, okay.
And that return, you could not argue it.
Yeah.
And I told I told my clients, I said, listen, are you looking at this as a long-term proposition or are you looking at it as a short-term gain?
Yeah.
I said, if that is all you want right now, I said, please be my guest. I don't have anything. You can definitely buy that from somebody who's selling it to you. And the people who did, I tell you what, they were in tears when the coal seam gang pulled the pin over there and BHP came out. That became a ghost town.
Yeah.
There was nobody paying rent, not even 700 a week rent.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
and the value from 400 went down to nearly 180, 280, $300,000.
Yeah.
Then now what you do? I told you so. So I always look at property as a long term. It's not timing the market. This is not something like we can say, oh, you're going to buy over here, you're going to make money.
Yeah.
There's no place that you can say. I always used to joke and tell people, I was a bit blasé about it. I said, put a blindfold and I give you a map, the 15-kilometer radius. You whack that map anywhere. I can promise you in 10 years' time, you will make money.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's there. If you take Sydney, for example, 50 years ago, nobody wanted to live in Balmain or in Rozelle. They used to be, it was like the Bronx of the day. Look at it today. It's the bee's knees.
Yeah, indeed. So as an investor then, if I do want to have some, I suppose, tangible takeaways for how to make off-the-plan work, to select the best possible investment from that, should you always try and maximise the view? Should we maybe try and go to a higher level? Are there any core principles attached to off-the-plan that you would suggest?
There isn't.
No.
Because I'll tell you again another true story why.
Yeah.
It does not matter what aspect you got in that building.
Yeah.
What you need to know is that building has got every ingredient for the fundamentals for it to work.
Okay, so it's the area more so than the actual asset.
The amenities, the quality of the developer, so you don't get hairline cracks coming through and foundation holes coming in.
Yeah.
So you got to do a lot of due diligence when it comes in. That's one thing I can stand when I say to my clients, we have an acquisition department and that's all they do. Yeah, we get approached by developers dime a dozen, but we are very selective with who we deal with.
Yeah, okay.
So with hand on heart, I can say there's not a project till this day that I've been in 12 years with off the plan that I've had anyone complain and tell me that we've had big cracks coming through the wall or the foundation in the car park is falling apart. Because it's who you're dealing with. Now if you're dealing with a fly-by-night company and these guys who never laid a brick, he's a truckie and suddenly there's a boom and they become a bricklayer.
Yeah, indeed.
So I tell my clients, I said, don't get emotional. It's not about the floor plan. That's not going to make you more money. It's not about the aspect of the views. Now you're getting too emotional about it. If it happens to fall that way, and you do get a bit of a view from your apartment, so be it.
Yeah.
But I'm not chasing that view or those aspects because end of the day, your tenant is going to live in it and pay rent. If he's going to be sitting mesmerizing with the view whole day, guess what? Centrelink is paying his rent then. And we don't want that.
So your current position right now, so would you have a portfolio maybe around the 15 mark?
Pretty close to it at the moment, but I'm there sitting around about 60 to 70 and 70% LVRs.
LVR, okay.
So
and are you comfortable with that?
Oh yeah.
What's your objective moving forward? Will you continue to acquire or potentially consolidate?
I'm already putting in a few more I want to put in because I'm still young. If I got another 10 years, I feel good 10 years left in me to do this. And within my portfolio, if they doubled only value once, I'll be laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, okay.
You know, because my son is just closed 18 and he started first year uni. Yeah. He wants to become an orthopedic surgeon. He's already told me that's 7 years university.
Oh God,
so I can't go nowhere.
Double, don't you? So you're going to continue to acquire. Do you have potentially a total portfolio value that you're aiming towards?
I haven't worked with those numbers. If I can add a few more while I'm doing this, I'll be happy
with that. Yeah.
I'm not being, like, as I said, I never ever kept that as forefront in mind. I worked the hours I wanted. I was able to be more the family man. And like a lot of people always at work tell me that, you know, says, oh, he works part-time.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed taking my son to school, bringing him from school, and, you know, being able to be there for all his occasions and my daughter's netball practices and music lessons, I would be there.
Yeah, indeed.
So the work did not ever come in front of that.
Yeah.
But I worked hard. When I was to work, I worked hard.
Yeah. So
right now, I would say I'm in the phase where I do it because I enjoy doing this. I'm not doing it to chase a dollar.
Yeah. And do you ever think that you'll sell down on some of these assets?
I will eventually because I need to sell to pay off the debts.
Yeah.
So if I can sell a few and clear the debts, you know, and then live on that passive income, and when the time comes, they'll be all handed over for the kids.
Okay, great. So that's the end goal then. So it's potentially, let's say you finish up with, say, 18 properties. If you maybe wait a cycle or 10 years, let's say, for example, you know, in theory, if it were to go through the old adage, you know, it doubles in value, the portfolio, you'd sell maybe 50%. You'd pay
probably
off all
less.
the remaining debt. Probably less.
It'll be less than 50%.
And then and you're looking to have a 0% LVR, no debt whatsoever.
No debt,
and then just have a passive income, and then you'd pass that on to your family after that point.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Because I have no intention of doing anything with it.
Yeah.
You know, as long as I can enjoy life with my wife, I'm happy.
Too right.
We go for our holidays, and you know, no need of being Mr. Scrooge. You're only young once. You're enjoying life. Why not? And I still do that now. You know. Yeah. So every year we go for our holidays, we go for our cruises, and people look at me and say, "How the hell you do this?" I said, "Well, no point in keeping money in the bank."
Yeah. Do you go away for? I remember it's Christmas, right?
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Do you go 6 weeks every Christmas with the whole family?
Whole family.
Yeah, indeed.
6 to 8 weeks. So last year we did the whole of Southeast Asia. So we went to Korea and Japan, China.
Yeah.
We had a blast.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, but this year I think I'm going to tame it down a little bit.
Yeah,
because the financial year wasn't that good.
Lovely stuff. Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to get in contact with you, Lionel, and learn more about Off the Plan, how would they go about that?
Very simple. They can either contact me on ironfish.com.au, Lionel D'Cruze, or they can even call me on 0412 352 989.
Great stuff. And sorry, what was your email address?
Lionel.D'Cruze at ironfish.com.
Okay, lovely stuff. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
It's been a pleasure
To be with you.